So hello everyone, my name is Avinash Raut. I'm a ServiceNow developer. So welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we are going to discuss one of the most important and commonly asked topic in ServiceNow development as well, and as well as the administration part. Okay. So the topic is UI policies and data policies. So let me write over here UI policy and data policy. Or we can write it as UI policy versus data policy. Okay. So okay. So if you are preparing for ServiceNow interviews, or you're just starting your journey with ServiceNow development, or you're understanding the whole ServiceNow end-to-end implementation, then this UI policy and data policies difference is extremely important. Many beginners get confused between these two concepts because both of them are used to control the form behavior and enforce certain rules on fields. But the truth is that they serve different purpose actually and operate at different level within the platform. So in this video, we are going to clear understand like what UI policy is and what data policy is, like how they differ from each other, and when we should use one over the other, and will we like will we able to implement it in our real time personal developer instance, or in example we can say. So we'll directly discuss this part in our personal developer instance through our instance. Okay. So let me open my personal developer instance first. Okay. So so while understanding the UI policies, let me write. Okay. So while understanding the UI policies, UI policies. Basically, let's discuss what is UI policy and how it's work actually. So whenever a user opens a record in ServiceNow, for example, and let's take an example of incident record. So they see the form very first, as we discussed earlier, and this form contains different fields such as caller, short description, priority, state, assignment groups, and so many other things. Okay, so now sometimes we want the behavior of the form to change dynamically depending on the certain condition. Okay, so let's take example. Imagine that when the incident priority becomes high, and we want the assignment group field to become mandatory, and let's take another example, when the incident state become closed, so we want the close notes field to be appear for us. Or we can say that maybe when the user selects a particular category, so we want some other fields to become read only. So all this kind of behaviors are controlled using our UI policy. So basically, UI policy in ServiceNow used to dynamically control the behavior of the fields on a form in the user interface. Okay, so let me write some kind of definition for it. Okay, so a UI policy in ServiceNow is used to dynamically control the form behavior of fields on a form in the user interface, or in the on the UI. You can simply write it. Okay. So this basically means like UI policy mainly affect what users see on the screen. Okay, and it controls the things like whether a field should be mandatory or visible, or simply read only based on the certain condition. Okay, so we can write it like it controls things like whether field should be mandatory, visible, or read only based on certain condition. Okay, so like it controls things like whether a field should be mandatory, visible, uh, or read only based on certain condition. Okay, so the important thing to understand here is that the UI policy works at the client side. Okay, so it works at the client side. Okay. Okay, that means that it execute in the browser when the user interacts with the form. Okay, so because of this, UI policy is mainly responsible for improving the user experience and ensuring that users fill out form correctly. Okay, so basically, while we are doing the configuration of the form, so in such case, on the basis of certain condition, we will be using the UI policies. Okay, so as we make field mandatory using your policy, the system will immediately show the user that the field must be filled before saving the record. Okay, so let's discuss some real-time scenario. Let's imagine in a simple word, like suppose a company has a rule that whenever an incident is marked as priority high, the support team must enter additional details explaining why the issue is critical. And we can say that like in this specific case, we want the description field to become mandatory when the priority equals high. Okay, so like in this case, like this is the perfect example where we can use the UI policy. Okay, so instead of writing the complex scripts, like over the complex scripts, we can using the UI policies. So like we just have to implement this scenario directly. We can test it in our personal developer instance. So let's move towards the personal developer instance. Okay. So now I am inside my personal developer instance. Okay. So if you look at the screen, you can see the application navigator on the left side. Okay. So from here, I'm going to search the UI policies. I just have to open the UI policies here. Okay. So you can see that. under system UI, you can open these UI policies. Okay, so let me open this UI policies. Okay, so there are some UI policies which are already present there in my personal developer instance. Okay, so there are some existing UI policies basically. Okay, so now I'll have to create a new UI policy to understand in a practical way. So I just click on new. Okay, so this is the form view to create any UI policy. Okay, so the very first thing, let it load properly. Okay, you can see the definition over here. Your policies change fields on the based on form, on a form based on a set of conditions. Use your policies to show or hide fields, or to make fields mandatory or read only based on this condition. Okay, and like we just have to provide the table name. Okay, so in our case, we are going to test it on our incident table. So let me pass the incident table name. Okay, short description is mandatory here. So I'll simply pass the test UI policy on incident. Okay, then we have when to apply and script. Okay, so we just have to ignore the script part. Okay, or like here, let me save it first. Okay, okay, so we have to pass the condition. Basically this, like, we have to pass this condition, and below that you can see the UI policies action. Okay, and this UI policies action determines what should happen to to the specific fields when the condition becomes true. This condition become true. Okay, so we have to pass the condition. So in our case, what we will do, we'll simply pass the condition like priority is high. Okay, so priority is high. Okay, so uh we have some important checkbox here, reverse the effect of the UI policy action when the condition evaluates to false. Basically, whenever we check this checkbox, reverse if false, basically it reverses the effect of the UI policy action when the condition evaluates to false. Okay, and we have the onload checkbox here. So basically this will apply the UI policy when the form is loaded and when the user changes their value on the form. Okay, so we just have to importantly check that these two checkbox must be checked. Okay, so now let's create the UI policy action. Okay, so now inside the UI policy action, I'll create a new. Okay, so the UI policy action specify exactly what action to take on a specific field, and this condition specified in the UI policy determine when this action are triggered. Okay, so this UI policy action somehow associated with this UI policy. Okay, so we just have to pass the field name. Okay, so in our case, will make description field is mandatory. Okay, so let me search for the description field. Okay, so I just have selected the description field, and I'll make mandatory true. Okay, so we can see that mandatory true visible and read only. Okay, so we just have to leave alone this both of this field, and we just have to change the field of this mandatory, like we have to make it true. Okay, true means that it will act mandatory whenever this kind of condition will meet, like your policy condition are met. Okay, so we just have to save the your policy action. Okay, so this configuration is being saved now. Okay, so we just have to check the UI policy. Okay, so now let's open the incident form, incident dot form. Okay, so uh, like the description field is mandatory. Let me check, there are some issues. Okay, let me check what happened exactly. Let me open one more tab, or you can simply click here and go to the configure, and we can go to the UI policies and we can check test UI policies. Okay, so in our case, the problem is that when to apply condition is not applied properly. So what we will do, we'll apply the condition properly. So priority is high. Okay, now, okay, now we'll just refresh, or we'll go to the form, incident dot form. Now we can test incident properly. Okay, so this is the incident form. You can see that initially the description field is optional, it is not mandatory. Okay, but as soon as I uh, change the state, sorry, not state, I should have to change the priority. Okay, so I should have to make the priority high. So me let me um, okay, so as soon as I make priority high, so I should have to go with impact high and urgency medium. Okay, so as soon as the priority gets high, the description fields get mandatory. Like on the basis of this condition, this form behaves like the description field get mandatory. Okay, so if I change, like, see the impact, I have changed the impact and urgency, then priority gets changed and that description field will reverse to its normal condition. So this is how it works basically. This happen dynamically without refreshing the page, you can observe. Okay, so because this UI policy works on the client side. Okay, so this is the power of UI policy. So it makes the form interactive, and ensures that user follows certain rules when entering the information. Like as we make it priority as high, you can see that the description field is mandatory. Okay, if priority is not high, see description field is not mandatory now. Okay, so these are the UI policies. Okay, but when we talk about the pros, there are some cons as well while we're talking about the UI policies. So there are some limitations for UI policies. So like here we can see that, like something very important that every ServiceNow developer should know in this case. Like this UI policy only works in the user interface, in the UI. Okay, so this means it works only when the user is interacting with the form through the browser. Okay, but what happens if the data is inserted into the table through some other methods? Like data might come from integrations, import sets, or the web services REST API integrations, we can say, and background scripts or the different APIs. So in those cases, UI policy will not run. This UI policy will not run. Okay, because those operations do not involve the user interaction, and that's where the data policy concept will come into the picture. So we will understand the data policy as well.